You know, let's do that again. Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Play the New Order as Ireland. Let us continue on from where we last left off. So Germany's gone into space. Currently, the politics of Ireland are a little bit messed up, right? We have the FF currently as dominant party. I'm trying to reach my armchair, but I just realized that I've changed chairs. Hello, operator. Yes, I'd like to be connected to the center police station. Yes, that one, please. Said Earl Dorothy on the operator on the other end of the line. He was starting to sweat inside of the small telephone booth that was located on the street. Unlike the more open ones in Dublin, the ones at Ulster had been much smaller. Product of the past, he thought to himself. He waited for a few months to be connected. Luckily for him, he had enough change that it was given from him to the station to keep the line alive for the next half hour. Edmund, aren't you in the middle of an investigation? Asked the officer on the line. I am, Luke. However, I found some evidence that I could possibly solve the bombing faster. A pair of glasses and the license plate number. They've been blown half down the street, but thankfully one of the piece. I wanted to see if you could find the car on the National Registry. The number is 151 KY 1568. Edmund requested. The line was silent for about 10 minutes. Here, the papers flipped periodically before Luke responded. I got the name of the bloke. It's an old card, it seems. Belonged to a dead member of the IRA. It says he died 2 years ago. Seemed to be quite the leader. He definitely had information here at the headquarters on him if you want to drop by, said Luke, trying to be helpful. If I think of it, I will, thanks, said Edmund as he hung up. Then he muttered under his breath. If the IRA was involved, it would seem to be a much larger issue, especially if Brad Day and the car were connected. Okay. Hello, Oyaya, how are you? In a special zone for special people. Far away from the busy streets of Belfast, the former Hillsborough Castle proudly flew the Irish tricolour. Converted into the main administrative office for the North Counties Ministry, it served as the residence of the province's governor, Neil Blaney. The company of IDF men guarding the approaches thought it no surprise that Blackmore Cities made its way into the building's guardhouse at noon that Friday, for it always did. Blaney's extra official meetings with other members of the cabinet, far away from the Lemstead halls of power in Dublin, were a secret to no one. Charles Hayway, for his part, rather hoped their regular encounters would be more secret. Why exactly Lemess kept trusting him as he did, when it was so well known that he'd go up to the NCSZ every weekend, was a mystery to him, and one that unsettled him more every single day. As soon as they got off the ministry's car, Haley was quick to spot the gray-clad figure storming out of the building. Lieutenant Curly Kelly, good afternoon. The IDF man opposite of him gave back a courteous remark, but ultimately continued on his way. Haley knew it couldn't be good. He then proceeded up the stairs of the Georgia construction until he got to Blaney's office. The Donald TD, working at his desk, had the same look as always, albeit his hair seemed to have received a bit more of Huey's remembered. His unmistakable gruff voice called out to Huey shortly after he entered the room. Hello, Charlie. On his desk, a picture of a far young Lieutenant Blaney in uniform from the war. How are you doing, Neil? And by the way, what was Kelly doing here? Howie let his concern be expressed through the tone of his voice. Jim Haley came back talking all about his concerns to our friends. Nothing to worry about, really. Provided you got those signed defense ministry orders, don't you? Huey nodded. By the way, Charles, I'm doing more than fine, as these are the counties. He allowed a burst of laughter. Now what's our boss in Dublin up to, Charlie? Is this pre-recorded live? No, it's happening right now. It's happening right. An assassin strikes at Hitler. I'm sure he'll be fine for the next, 2 years. Nothing bad will happen. Or good, depending on, I guess, your perspective. The witness. Joseph McCarran, correct? Asked Ammon. The man sitting across from him simply grunted and turned his head away. The questioning had been difficult so far, with the man seemingly refusing to answer at times, especially when it came to his occupation and what he was doing when the bomb went off. Well, he always walked the same route every day, and I was turned around. I had to go inside my house before I heard the explosion. Next thing I knew, a car had been gone up in flames, and poor Bredaz was dead, said McCarran, sounding nervous as sweat dripped down his face. Do you know who this plate belongs to? Everyone placed the plate from the car onto the table. Immediately, McCarran began to look around before looking at the plate and shrugging, saying he'd never seen the car before. Evan thought in his head, time to play mean cop. You sure about that? I assume you know what happens if we find out that you lied to an officer, said Amon, trying to intimidate McCarran, who looked around one more time before leaning in close. Please, look behind you. I'm being forced to do this, I beg you. McCarran said this as his eyes darted around the street. Amon turned and immediately saw figures watching him. As soon as he met his eyes with one in the front, they broke off and got into a car. Bastards, yelled Amon, as he barked orders at another officer to continue questioning as he raced to his car and radiated into headquarters. This day just got a hell of a lot more interested, thought Amon. Yeah. If it's pre-recorded, it would be called like a premiere, I believe. Atlas shrugged. Eamon de Vera looks through his bookshelves. He had read all those books before, sometimes even twice or 3 times. Many of them had been one of historical nature, ranging from ones written by Plato to more modern books written by Thornio. All of them had ideas that stuck with de Vera. Photos had lined his work desk as well. Many of them his former friend and now rival, Jean Lemasse. The photo stung de Vera. It made him remember things that hurt him. The pain of a friend turned on him with the whole Fé Naval following. Their bastardly coalition with Labour, it was all going to ruin Ireland. De Vera then decided to call Shane McEntee to meet him in the office. While McEntee's official abilities had been to serve the Taoiseach, he didn't interact much with Lemaisse, so he was a perfect candidate for de Vera to talk to. It just doesn't make sense, Sean. How Lemaisse would turn his back to me and then take the whole party with it. I become a ghost in politics, nothing more than a figurehead for a government. All the power of Taoiseach's gone like that. Sean nodded along. I sold this country to the Germans thinking they would respect our boundaries. Instead, we got forced to be policed by them and forced to the so-called Einspakt. Unity my arse. McEntee tried to comfort de Vera after hearing him rant. I don't think Ireland would forgive you, Eamon. Your contributions Ireland are eternal. Before Sean could continue, he checked the time and had to leave to meet Lemasse alone. De Vera began to weep silently, hoping that he would not be forgotten. Okay, so we have some decisions. Show and hide approval acts request. I don't think we need to request funding right now. And this will take about 1.5 years. 3 or 3 from trade -2. And how are you guys doing? We could suppress some groups. Probably want to suppress ICG first, even though they're middling. They are not respecting a ceasefire, so I think we want to try to suppress them first and foremost. They're also now extremely angry, but they are weakening, and I'm going to say that's probably pretty good. We just got a new yo-yo? What the hell? Fun power. Yeah, let's get some more power. I think that seems okay. I don't know exactly how that works, but we'll find out. Got an issue with my yo-yo? I don't have an issue with your yo-yo. I'm just confused. I didn't know people even play with yo-yos anymore. That's my thing. Law and order on the streets of Belfast. The car weaved through the streets of Belfast, recklessly dodging traffic and swerving around pedestrians with only the barest regard of safety. Eamon followed closely behind his patrol car, sirens flashing, taking a little bit more care to avoid harming any bystanders. He is forced to duck a couple of times when one of the escaping suspects fired a pistol in his car, but his aim thankfully proved to be piss poor. The chase ended suddenly when the front of the fleeing car wrapped around itself a light pole. Both escapees staggered out of the wrecked automobile, one bleeding heavily from a cut on his head, and found shelter in the back room of a bookstore. As for Eamon, he knew that it would be suicide to go in there alone, so he waited outside the alley with the service pistol drawn and called for reinforcements. In a matter of minutes, half a dozen Garda officers arrived, cordoning off the area and pointing them to the door. The shooters were summoned to demands shouted by the Guardia over the megaphone, and made no demands of their own. While waiting for officers, considered sending someone in, the door flew open, outbarreled one of the shooters, armed and bellowing wildly. He managed to hit one of the officers in the arm before being felled by a hail of bullets. As for the other, it appeared he bled out from his injuries. 2 days later, a file appeared at Eamon's desk, the autopsy of the 2 dead shooters. They had no IDs on them, but prison dental records proved illuminating. Both men were Catholic and had ties to the Irish Republican Army, not the UVF. How far does the rabbit hole go? Oh, we even got like less power for the ICG. That seems good to me. Yes, the ICG is now down to 25%. They're now considered weak. I'm happy to see that. We probably do want to try to suppress these two, but the thing is, if we start to suppress them, I'm assuming they might not respect the ceasefire, and open war might open up in Northern Ireland, which probably would not be a great thing, if I had to take a guess. Closing time. It had been a quiet at Old Ferrius pub. Sales were low as always, and there were very few new faces. Adam O'Flaherty, the owner, had made enough to get by, but struggling day in and day out. The church bells of Dublin tolled on at the time, midnight. Time to close up, Tom. Adam told one of the remaining patrons still seated at the bar. Go home to your loving wife and kids. I'm sure they miss you with all the time you spent here. Fine, fine, I'll get out of your hair, Tom chuckled. I'll tell Sarah you said hi. See you tomorrow. Adam shared Tom out of the cool night air. Tom was a decent fellow, all told, kind-hearted, hard-working. Went to church on Sundays. Not too well off, Adam supposed, but that was a lot of Ireland these days. Things weren't supposed to be like this. His pa had fought in the war against the English when Adam was just a boy, but always tell stories about how great Ireland would be when she reunited with all her brothers in the north. That's all the television seemed to talk about. How great having the Isle back together was for everybody, even if the provinces in the north hadn't seemed to get the memo. Locked away up for the night, Adam caught sight of the VW car puttering down at the otherwise quiet street. Now, if that wasn't a metaphor for Ireland's ills, Adam thought to himself, the damn Germans had swept Ireland into their fancy promises and offers of assistance. But everybody but the damn Taoiseach knew that it was sucking the lifeblood of the Irish people. Half the businesses in Dublin seemed to be German-run these days, and people even had the gall to ask if he stocked any of the piss that Germans had the audacity to call beer at his pub. Adam sighed as he walked down the street towards his home. He'd always loved his home, as any true Irishman would, but thought he would never admit it. He grew harder and harder every day to feel proud to call himself an Irishman. Did he play Costa Rican Kaiser Redux using a German coffee company path? I mean, that sounds like that could be interesting. There's a lot of Kaiser Redux paths that I've never tried. They all, I think, could be fun. Cornishs Council. I like it, said Bernard Cornish. When all the members of his party had outlined a proposal for their goals at the ruling, part of the ruling coalition party. The plan, I mean. Well, that's hardly surprising, said one of his partymen, fidgeting uncomfortably with his old wooden chair. No one suggested anything out of our normal policies. I suppose that's true, said Cornish, crossing his arms and looking across the room at the Labour Party's best and brightest. Welfare, minimum wage increases, investment in public services. It's a grab bag of policies that we're pushing for decades. But this time, we're in the government. We're in the government coalition, yes, but as much as I hate to remind myself, said one MP with a sigh, we're a minority in the Fianna Fáil. Yes, cited Cornish. It seems like it's not our policy that's the question, it's our branding. I'm afraid we can't talk like the Labour Party if we want to get any of our policies through. So let's talk about unions, and we're talking about economic advantages of better paid workers, yes? Just another party member? I suppose so, said Cornish. At least while we're talking to the rest of the party. The Labour MP went their separate ways a short time later, equally parts optimistic and deflated about the part that they had to play in the government. So who's in the coalition right now? Because we got the I'm guessing we have the FFs, the FF Liberals, and the FF Nationalists. I'm assuming that is our government coalition right now. You got that idea from Swishball? Who is Swishball? I'm guessing that's another YouTuber, or maybe Twitch streamer as well. I guess we should actually look at our economy tree. I've not looked at this at all. Oh, so we can actually, we have 2 military factories. We could go up to more civilian factories. I think that seems quite nice. Debt to GDP ratio, 47.7. Honestly, that's not so bad. We're currently in the German economic sphere. We have a crediting rating of 6. I don't know what's good. I don't know what the maximum number is. Maybe a scale from 0 to 10, 1 to 10. GDP of 2.6 billion, inflation of 4.1%. We are currently a free market capitalist country. Yearly surplus of 0.0. Okay, so we are making a slight amount of money, but nothing like too crazy. Oh, we got sliders? Hell yeah. Military spending at 0.34. Civilian spending at 0.16. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind spending more money on our social services. Yeah, let's crank you up a little bit. Research speed, I'm not really too worried about. And let's do a little bit more on admin expenditures. I think that seems okay. What about our social stuff here? So yeah, it's 1961. I'm assuming we're actually allowed to look at every single year as we go on, which is kind of crazy. Population grew by 91,000. Our ranks of the poor grew by 11,700. 34,000 people died from preventable diseases. We don't have a nuclear stockpile. GDP per capita is about $800. Poverty at about 36.5%. Our largest trade partner, I believe that's Ukraine. Right? That's you, right? Yes. And then what about our other? What's in trade here? Production. We're -1 on rubber. We're -1 on steel. We do have a lot of whatever the hell this green is. Consumer goods. Okay. We're consuming all of those. We're importing oil. Are we trading anything? We're exporting literally nothing. That doesn't seem great. Okay. Well, get me out of here for now. So, I mean, overall, I'd say the economy's doing decently enough. Like, I don't have any concerns about it. I'm hoping nobody else has any concerns either. I guess, you know what we probably should do is with Blue Army? We should probably just station them on Northern Ireland, just in case. Okay, so we're going to do still one party next. Again, read this at your own leisure. And boys will be boys. Audrey McCormick dreaded her walk home from her work at the grocery each day. Not for the distance, it wasn't too far really, nor did she dread it because of the scenery. The city streets of Dublin were actually quite nice. No, the reason she hated her walk home is because of certain construction yards she passed by every day on her right. The men working on the yard, though Audrey would sooner call them pigs, had grown infatuated with her, and would often loiter around the entrance of the yard in a drunken stupor, trying to woo her with their supposed manly charm. Standing up for herself was only intensified their efforts, and no one was willing to help her no matter who she complained to. Boys will be boys was always the answer. She tried to duck her head as she walked past the yard, but it was no use. The pigs were out in full force today, and they spotted her at once. Hey, there she is! And she could hear one of them slur. Why not come and spend some time with us today, gorgeous? Audrey sighed, resigning herself to the inevitable. She ignored the catcalling as best she could, as always. Boys would be boys, she told herself. She had gone to the police once to complain about the harassment. It's certainly not illegal to tell a woman she's pretty on the street, one had told her. Try to think of it as a compliment. Boys will be boys, after all. That had been the first and last time she had gone with them with her concerns. Audrey stiffened as one of the men slapped her on the rear as she passed by. She turned around, cheeks flushed with anger and embarrassment. Was only met with the roaring laughter of the men patting themselves on the back. Audrey turned and walked away a little bit faster, a little bit lesser. Blinking away tears, she tried her best to ignore the jeers and whistles from the yard behind her, and there was nothing more she could do. Boys will be boys, after all. But I think with that, that's going to be a good time for us to end off this episode. So if you enjoyed, thumbs up. Not enjoying, click thumbs down. You want to see more, subscribe, and goodbye.